Hi, I'm Richard Q, and this is my podcast, Electric Communion, Conversations in Clubland. The dance music industry, like the entertainment industry as a whole, is a hard nut to crack for those wanting to carve out a full-time career. In the digital age, it seems like everyone's a DJ, myself included. In most cases, apart from the few lucky ones, you need the production chops and a string of bona fide releases under your belt to actually get anywhere these days. You could always try your hand at promoting your own night, as that's certainly a surefire way of getting yourself on the bill, but it's still not always easy. The idea for this podcast was born out of the desire to talk with some of these people who are out there trying to make it. Through frank and open conversations, I aim to find out more about the challenges they face, the successes they've had, the highs, the lows, what motivates them, as well as hopefully gleaning some advice along the way for those listeners aspiring to make it out there themselves. Electric Communion, Conversations in Clubland. Hello there. First of all, thank you for taking the time out to listen to this podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to say that unfortunately the audio quality on this podcast wasn't as good as I would have hoped it to be. It's the first time I did a podcast remotely, and on reflection, I got some things wrong. You learn from your mistakes, and going forward, I think I know what to do next time to make sure that the audio quality is much better. But I wanted to do this podcast. Adrian had put so much time and effort into it. I hope you'll stay and listen, and you'll find out for yourself that what he's got to say is incredibly insightful, so hopefully you can cut through the poor quality and still enjoy the show. Thanks.
Hello and welcome to Electric Communion, Conversations in Clubland, episode 3. I'm very excited to be sitting virtually across from my third guest, a producer who I've been a big admirer for some time now, Adrian Roman. Hi Adrian, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine, and you?
Good, I'm good, thank you. As a point of reference, today is Monday the 20th of March. And yeah, we're doing this via Zoom. First time I've done a podcast remotely, so fingers and toes crossed everything goes well, technical-wise. Me and Adrian, we've done a few tests, we've had a few conversations prior to this podcast just to get to know each other. And yeah, just iron out any technical issues. So, Adrian, first of all, thank you very much for taking the time out to do this podcast. And I kind of just wanted to start with asking you, for those listeners who maybe are not familiar with who you are and the music you produce, could you just kind of give a little bit of a flavour, a brief summary of what you're about?
I'm a pretty normal person that lives in Spain. And I get into music, or concretely electronic music, too many years ago. And well, I produce, I don't know, definition is what they want because I don't have too many pressures under my back. So I produce maybe, avant-garde music or something a little bit out the box or the mainstream. But I think it works in the end of the day in the dance floor. I have inspiration from house, from dance, from disco music. I don't know, maybe the definition of my music is not something that matters me, but I just try to enjoy the music and what I do, and of course I try to enjoy dance floor.
Yeah, you just mentioned the word avant-garde, and when I did a bit of research about you online, that's a phrase that came up quite a lot. What's your interpretation of the phrase avant-garde in terms of the music you produce? Is it something that you consciously think about when you produce music? Are you always trying to push the boundaries of electronic music?
Well, in this world, and especially in the art world, something that is in front of the crowd and something that is in the medias and something like that, or maybe you have to do is must have to define your product, what you do, and it's something that we have think about a lot with my manager, with my friend Alberto, and well, it's even marketing just to define something, and it's a word that we like a lot, and I think it's maybe the word that, and that's for me that defines. Because we are always pushing the limits of the experimental music a little bit. Of course, there are other sense of the music that harder, but my side, I try always to do my best, and to keep enjoying and to keep challenging myself So I think avant-garde is maybe something romantic and something that is captivating for the reader. As I said, it was a little bit of marketing too.
What producers right now do you draw inspiration from, and maybe compare yourself with in terms of, similar production values? I mean, and for me, a name that springs immediately to mind is Trikk, who I know you're a fan of. He's a producer, at the top of his game right now. His new album, Flora and Fauna, for me is a kind of amazing example of, the unlimited possibilities of house music that can be played in clubs. Any other kind of producers that you kind of really admire and take influence from at the moment?
Well, just the fact to be a little bit compared with Bruno is amazing, and it's beautiful for me, of course. He's one of the most important inspirations for me, just not in the music panorama, but in the aesthetic or communication with the crowd too. But I have a lot of inspirations too. For example, I'm a great follower of the Santiago Garcia music, for example, and I'm very lucky because I have a good relationship with him, and I share, points of view of the music, and it's very good. I follow, for example, the music of Yubik too. I'm a great follower of his music. For me, he's one of the most interesting producers in that new melodic techno scene. So, and it's something that has inspired me since a while. And it's music that unconsciously has created my own environment of sounds. And it's like a result of that inspirations. I don't know, maybe Jepe too. Jepe is a great friend of me, and he's one of the best producers for me, and has one of or some of my favorite songs, my favorite tracks. I don't know, there are a lot of great producers in Spain. We have, for example, Clemente or Martin Hers too, and I have the chance to collaborate with them in the album of Clemente, or for example with some of EPs with Martin. It's a great amount of offer right now of great musicians.
That Clemente album, yes, which you said you collaborated with him on, that was a fantastic album. One of my favourite albums of last year. You mentioned Jepe. He remixed one of your tracks, didn't he? Was it Providence?
Yeah, exactly. Providence.
Yeah, and then Santiago Garcia, he, correct me if I'm wrong, he's from Argentina, isn't he? But he lives in Spain now, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. He's living in Spain this year. I don't know if in Ibiza or what, but he's here. Yeah.
And you mentioned Yubik, and I know that you told me, when we had a conversation before, that you're collaborating with him at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, we are doing music together right now. It's something that is creating with a very natural way. We have at least, I don't know if 1-2 tracks, and we are creating something to have something more compact and strong. I don't know how many tracks we will get, but we are, it's sharing ideas, sharing point of views, because his situation is pretty different from mine, and it's very interesting because of despite the different situations, at least in the end, the result is very connected and is very linked. And the music, I think, is very interesting and has a lot of sense.
Yeah. So you're from Spain. You were born in Spain. You live in Castellón. Is that how you say it? Castellón?
Castellón, yeah.
Castellón. And I guess for geographical reference, for those people who might not know, it's on the east coast of Spain, isn't it? It's about an hour north of Valencia.
Yeah, it's in the middle of Valencia and Barcelona, more or less. Yeah, it's nearest from Valencia. Yeah.
When I was checking it out, I noticed it's very, very close to the resort Benicassim.
Yeah, exactly.
Where I know Benicassim, and I'm sure lots of listeners will know Benicassim from the big music festival that happens. I think it's every year, isn't it?
Yeah, here in Castellón, for example, we have a great scene of music and a lot of tradition. We have the FIB, we have another festival that is called Sansan. We have Rototom. We had in the past Costa de Fuego. Well, it's like a small place of Spain that has a great tradition with festivals of 20, 30 years of history. I don't know, maybe it's not the reason that I produce music, but it helps to create an environment of an artistic environment that makes natural for you to be among a lot of sounds.
Yeah. And how would you kind of describe the electronic music scene in Spain at the moment? Specifically, really, the kind of music that you play, is there a big scene for it? Because in the UK at the moment, the kind of music that you play, the melodic house, the melodic house that's got that link to Berlin and kind of the whole Innervisions scenes, is very centered around London. There's not much happening outside London. And I think that the stuff that's happening in London at the moment, a lot of thanks has to be given to promoters such as Nick Castle, Labyrinth and Parable. Without those guys bringing in big DJs such as Dixon and Aera and Trikk and Jimmy Jules, all these DJs that I played recently, I kind of wonder what the scene would be like in the UK. Is it kind of similar in Spain? Is it kind of centered around the big cities such as Barcelona and Real Madrid?
As I say, I don't like to define the things, and especially the music. Obviously, we have some producers, some sense that are common in every country with a type of tracks or producer. But I don't like to focus in one concrete scene or concrete type of music. But if we talk about, or the connected producers or parties in Spain, it's focus, I think, obviously Madrid, the capital city, Barcelona too, but there is a great point in Spain that is Malaga, and in Malaga there are great parties, especially Metrica. I have the chance to collaborate with them, with the label, with the parties. For me, it's this type of sound that we work is the best party. That's not for the music, but the production, the visuals, the place, especially the people, the crowd there has a lot of knowledge about music. It's very respectful, and I don't know, it's very special to play there, and I'm very grateful with Miguel Payda to give me the chance to play there almost every year and to collaborate with them so many times, right? So I don't know, I could say Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia a little bit, but Malaga for me is very special, but they are very ambitious and they want more, and they are working to have more parties, more great artists, and I don't know, maybe in the future we will have more points of interesting parties in our country.
Yeah, you mentioned Miguel Payda then. He's the label boss of Metrica, isn't he? Which, as you said, based in Malaga. You played recently, didn't you, for a Metrica night? Was it, I think, in February? Because that's actually where the kind of origins of this podcast came about, isn't it? Because you were on the same lineup as my second guest, Reg, who I know that you're friends with, and kind of Reg put in a little word for me. And that's how you got on board. So thank you, Reg, if you're listening. I know you'll listen at some point. Thanks for that.
Electric Communion, conversations in Clubland.
So talk about how you got into production. When did you first start getting into electronic music production?
Well, it was a lot of years ago. I was a teenager, and it was very natural. I reached firstly it was the virtual DJ with the computer. Well, I was trying to create something from scratch, but I didn't know nothing because no one in my family is a producer, and no one of my friends too, because they don't know nothing about my music. And I was trying to manage something to. Recording that track and mixing with the other track and mixing the kick with the other track, and I didn't know what's the way to create something. And then I discovered DLWs, and I discovered my DLW that is FL Studio, and it was very slow because as I said, it was very natural with no pressure. I think I'm producing music maybe, I don't know, my first release was in 2014, I think. It was my debut, but maybe it wasn't a good idea to release something in that day, but it was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, and you mentioned FL Studio then, which, I don't really know much about electronic music production, but it seemed to me until starting to do this podcast, in fact, that most people, especially making the kind of music that you make, the kind of, I know that you don't want to be pigeonholed, but the kind of melodic house, lots of people use Ableton. But yeah, since talking to people on this podcast, you've just mentioned FL Studios. So did Reg, that's his kind of DAW of choice. And I know also from reading some articles with, again, Trikk, that's his kind of software of choice. Have you ever tried anything else like Ableton, or have you always just stuck to FL Studios?
It was not in my case to try something else. I didn't know nothing about music, especially about electronic music. My approach to music was to play guitar. I was a musician with a guitar, and I get lessons for many years to play the guitar more or less good. So I didn't know nothing, and I thought that the only tool was FL Studio. When I was getting in the panorama, I noticed that there were a lot of different tools, as Ableton, Logic, Pro Tools, something like that. But in that point, I didn't feel that it was the point to change. And I was very comfortable with FL Studio because I do whatever I want with FL Studio. Maybe it has a lot of small limitations, but with others too. The DLWs are evolving every time. And I think, for me, at least in that point, not a good idea to change. I'm very happy with it. But I didn't try another one because I didn't know that another option was
yeah, sure. Cool. Yeah. We've got a saying in England, I guess, if it ain't broke, you don't need to fix it. As in, if it works for you, then what's the point of changing it? Yeah. And what about, are you somebody who kind of likes to work predominantly in the box, or do you have lots of hardware, lots of keyboards and other kind of external devices as well?
Well, right now, my studio is evolving as my music too. My music is the result of an evolution of my studio. I use that keyboard that is a Behringer Mine 6. That is, for me, a great tool. My other synthesizer is that Model D by Behringer 2. That's all in synthesizer speaking. But right now, I'm getting into a lot of organic music, real instruments. And I have, for example, a Charles, I have a acoustic bass, I have darbukas, I have timbales, I have shakers. Well, and whatever I have it could be an instrument, for example, I don't know, a good that I have. Well, it's something very interesting, and the sky's the limit with that kind of things. So I'm introducing a little bit slowly external elements in my music.
So you mentioned that you were kind of trained as a guitarist. Have you used any of your own kind of guitar playing? Has that been incorporated into any of the tracks you've made so far?
I've never used it. I think maybe in one track, I think in Lambda, that it was released in Pieces of Life, the label of Jamil. But I think it was a virtual guitar. I did like the approach to the chorus was with the real guitar, but I think maybe my type of guitar, that is the Spanish guitar or the acoustic guitar, I think doesn't fit very well with my style, and I didn't found the time to use it. Let's see.
Maybe for the future. When I first started listening to your music, I was immediately drawn to the kind of percussive arrangements. That seems to be a really strong feature in your music. You've got lots of very interesting, complex percussive arrangements. What's kind of the fascination in the percussive elements of your tracks? I mean, do you start a track with those kind of percussive arrangements and then build your track around it, or does it just come very organically? I mean, also, do you have an idea of what your track is going to sound like before you start kind of playing about in FL Studios, or do you just start from scratch, start from nothing, start playing around and it just comes from nowhere?
I think the origins of the fascination is maybe my father, because he loves everything in relation with the percussions, and he's not a great listener, or maybe he has not great knowledge about music, that he loves every track that has a great batucada or something like great snares or electronic music with great percussions. And it was unconsciously something that flows inside me. And maybe when I had the tools to create something more or less interesting with the percussions, it starts to flow. In my case, for example, when I approach to create something from scratch with my music, especially right now, I focus more in the point with the percussions, I think, because it's just the point or the part that I enjoy the most, because it's something that works, and it's something that I like a lot. But the way to approach to every track is different. Maybe have, for example, the percussions are a great tool for me, because when I'm not very inspired, I know that I take something with the percussion and it will work more or less. But maybe when I have a main idea with a synthesizer or with a phrase of acoustic like that, it's just a support for enhance the main idea.
Yeah. I know that when we've talked prior to this podcast, you're a film fan like myself, you're into cinema. And I also often get the feeling that there's a real kind of cinematic sense to quite a lot of your music, almost like they could be part of a movie soundtrack. Is that something that you again consciously try to embed into your music?
Music and cinema are both of my passions, or maybe two of the most important passions for me. But I never linked them. Maybe because I see the cinema with a lot of respect and something that is impossible to me. But in the recent years, my music gets a little more cinematic, I think, with the percussions, great revered, something more organic, something more epic. Last year, I had the chance to collaborate with one of my best friends and one of the best artists in the visual panorama for me, the new visual panorama. That is Ruben Valero, and he created a short film, and I did the soundtrack, and it was very interesting. And it was like to break the point and to realize that I was able to do something maybe that fit in that context. I don't know, maybe something that could be in the future and something that I would love. But in that point, I see it with a lot of respect, and at the moment I don't link them. And dance floor is very different from cinema.
Sure. I wondered if you've ever thought of maybe making a soundtrack, for a movie, or maybe you've even been approached, because I know that there are lots of electronic music producers who kind of made that leap and have actually produced soundtracks, film scores. Is that something that you would like to do in the future?
Yeah, of course. And I'm realizing that there are a lot of pieces of art in the cinema, film series that are getting in the electronic music. Electronic music is introducing itself in that world.
Yeah.
Because maybe in the past it was like violence and something epic, and the percussions very traditional, but electronic music works very well in that context, and it's very useful to create very intense feelings in that certain parts of the stories.
Yeah.
So I think it would be interesting to link finally both passions and to work together.
You mentioned your short film, Providence, and I was going to ask you about that. I've watched it a number of times. I watched it, I think, when it first came out, and then I watched it a couple of times over the last couple of days again. And it's a really beautiful kind of piece of short cinema. What you've kind of touched upon it already. You said that your friend directed it, but what was the kind of idea behind it? Did you come up with the music Providence, which is very cinematic, especially the intro remix is a very that would easily fit in any kind of soundtrack. Did you come up with that first and then you made the short film around it, or did you make the short film first and then added the music afterwards?
Well, the origin of the short film was the necessity to do something different in the panorama in our musical environment. And I noticed that there were some short films or video clips for the tracks, but the difference was that the main producer didn't act didn't play any role in the video clip. Right. So it was like a a point to realize that was something new to try. The track was first, so I produced the track.
Yeah.
Even I produced the Providence original mix was the first track. So I produced firstly a dance floor track. But doing the mix down, I noticed that if I remove the drums, I get an ambient track. So it was by mistake. Creation of the intro mix was by a mistake. So okay, I have the original mix and the intro mix. Okay, that's beautiful. Okay, talking with Ruben has in that way had the necessity to create something because he was photographer and he wanted to get into the short films, the cinematic world. Well, I said to him, what if we create something to get image to that sound? And I sent the sound to him, and he loved the track, and he said, "I'm on board. We'll get it." So we create the screenplay together. Well, with a lot of options. For example, the main character could be very variable. The first one was musician. Okay, we regret that because it's very typical.
Yeah.
The last option was the painter because I was a painter in my childhood. I get lessons of painting too.
Yeah.
It's something that I don't do nowadays, but it's part of my past. And we create something to get image for the sound, but the sound was first.
And you were the actor, the main actor in the movie as well. Was that something that came naturally to you? Have you done much acting before?
Yeah, no, it was my first time and maybe the last time too. Yeah, it was the reason was that because okay, there were some video clips or sent, but any of the producers appears in the video clip. So for me, it was a chance to create something very new in that point of the music scene. I said, okay, we have to do it. We have to do it something with me, not because I have the feeling of where the main character. It was just realizing that it was something that nobody has done before.
Electric Communion. Conversations.
Let's talk about some of your tracks that you've done. I asked you originally if you could choose maybe 2 tracks that you wanted to talk about. You kind of flipped that back on me because I guess it's quite hard when you've so kind of emotionally attached to making tracks. I guess they're all your favourites. So you kind of put it back on me for me to choose the track. So I want to just talk a little bit more about 2 of my favourite tracks of yours. The first being Petrified Forest. And I know that there's kind of an interesting story around the name Petrified Forest. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and where it came from?
Yeah, Petrified Forest, the name of the origin of the name was because, I'm not a great reader. I don't read too much books, to be honest. It's something that I say with embarrassment that, okay, it's true. I get the knowledge from other sources, like, for example, internet videos. I read books, but it's all in relation with music, acoustic, or mixed down, but no more. But I watched a film called Revolutionary Road. The main characters were Leo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, and it's directed by Sam Mendes. And it was, stunning. It was amazing for me. Something so true, something so realistic, and something so sensible with the human nature. It was fantastic. So I realized that it was a film based in a novel by Richard Yates, that he was a writer from USA. And I get into his novels, and I got the novel of Revolutionary Road. I loved it. It was so good as the film for me. In the story and the film and the book, the main character of Kate Winslet plays a role in a play called The Petrified Forest. And, it was like, okay, I will do it. No more.
Okay, so I found out some information doing a bit of research on the internet about the Petrified Forest. So, first of all, the Petrified Forest is actually kind of desert land in northeastern Arizona, I think, in the United States. And it's kind of famous for all those rock formations. And there's also a film which starred Humphrey Bogart, I think it was 1936, called The Petrified Forest, which was actually set in the the petrified forest in northeastern Arizona. And I think the play that you're talking about within the Sam Mendes film, Revolutionary Road, which Kate Winslet stars in the film, is a play of that Humphrey Bogart film. So there you go. Little bit of extra information that you might not have known. I've not actually watched the Humphrey Bogart film, but I have watched the Revolutionary Road, the Sam Mendes film. I'm a big fan of Sam Mendes, and so too DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. It's a great film. Okay, let's have a listen to a bit of the track Petrified Forest right now. Can you remember how you approached that track in regards to production? How long did you work on the track?
Yeah, well, that track was produced in a stage of my music life that was in the time with when I produced 1914 and your first track too. It was that stage. I think, well, it was another track, but it wasn't released. So it was time that I was very inspired because I visited a lot of studios from my producer friends. And well, of course, it's inspiring and you learn a lot from them. For example, from Clemente. Yeah, it was the time to research and to collect all of the new knowledge and to focus here in the studio. And I think it has a common line. The tracks has a common line to link them.
That featured, didn't it, on a 4-track EP? One of the tracks, Jepe, was that on that EP as well?
Yeah, it was Jepe, Forest, and Odd Love is done before. Odd Love is even done in when I was living in the other part of the country, in Coruña, in Galicia. So it was produced in other city. But Jepe was done maybe 2 weeks before the Forest, and it was a stage of my life that I wanted something very intense and with percussions that works very well, but not very epic and not so organic that maybe in the right now. But they are music or they are tracks that I enjoy a lot, even right now playing them, and they work very well, and it's like a great surprise to me because when I play in some of the clubs, I take a chance to play, for example, Jepe or the Petit Forest especially. It was very well yet, and it's very well. It's proud for me.
I'm interested in the name Jepe. I'm always interested in kind of where names for tracks and albums, and even sometimes artist names, originate from. Now, I Googled the word Jepe, and this might not be the same Jepe that you named the track after, but in the Urban Dictionary, I found that Jepe is a name for a likable arsehole, and it relates it to, quite unfairly, I think, people such as the actor Christian Bale. Is that the Jepe that you...
No.
Not familiar with?
The reason of that name, it was because it was a tribute of a person who died, and the name was Josefa Fernandez, so it was the Josefa Fernandez, the name. For example, Odd Love, that is the other track of the EP, is the name of my dead dog in inverse. My dog was called Balto, so in inverse is Odd Love. That I thought it was interesting, a more interesting track than Balto, for example.
Sure, yeah. And let's talk about another track, the track that I chose, Infinito. Maybe it's the first track that I ever came across from you. I love the kind of rolling drum line that just goes throughout that track. And maybe that's what, in my head, why you called it Infinito, because it seems like that drum line could go on forever. Is there any kind of truth in that?
Well, I wanted to call my tracks or start to call my tracks, some of them in Spanish, because I think it's my language and it's easier to me to connect the feeling of the tracks with my mother tongue. And well, I think Spanish has a great sound too. It's very romantic. It's not so punched than from English, for example, that is very direct. I think Brazilian or Portuguese or Spanish are tongues that sounds very well. And yeah, it was nothing special. I just wanted to call a track in Spanish, and Infinito was good enough. But yeah, it's maybe a feeling that the track is, well, it's a loop as every track of electronic music.
When you create your tracks, are you kind of thinking as you're producing them how they will sound on the dance floor? Is that kind of a big element of how you approach each track, or does that not matter?
Well, the more you play, the more you focus on that point, because in the end you will play them. You will play your tracks and you want them to work. But the first approach, I never thought about the result in any environment than in my studio. So I just want them to like me. I want something dancey, I want something interesting with a lot of contrast, and of course something that I want to play every time. If I have a track that I don't want to play them, if I have a track that I don't want to open the project and to listen to them, is maybe something that will dead or something that I won't release. So firstly, my first filter is mine, is myself. And then I of course, I have to do a work of structure of the ideas in a dance floor context. And then I need something very captivating, especially in the drop, and something very playable. There is a mix of the feelings, myself and the dance floor.
Producers like yourself, when you create a track, often play them out in club environment for a long time before they actually ever see a release. You send them to fellow friends and DJs who test them out and, I'm sure give you feedback. Have you ever been in a position where you played out some of your tracks in a club and didn't get the reaction that you'd hoped for? And either because of that, you thought, okay, I'm not going to continue with this track, or did you maybe then go back and tweak it, try and improve it? Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, that's it. Well, if I play one of my tracks, it's because I'm very aware that the track has possibilities to work. I don't want to sacrifice my sets with music that is with doubt. So when I have a track ready and when I have a track that I think it will work, I test them. But I don't want to have a lot of pressure with the reaction of the crowd, because maybe one track that has no reaction in one place is the main track of the other set in other place. Maybe because you play them in the right point of the set, or maybe that type of crowd wants something more harder or something smoother. I don't know, but you have to do an average of the reactions, and you can do, of course, change, and you can adjust the something that you think it doesn't work. But normally it's just, okay, the break is too long, or the break is too short, and especially mix down too, because you don't have the sound system that the club has. So maybe the bass is too high, or maybe it's too crispy, the highs. It's something that not so too, okay, it's the track, it's not the track, it's just to adjust the types.
Subtle tweaks, isn't it? Yeah. Something that I found out from my first guest, Faide, who's a very good friend as well, being at his studio, where he has about 4 different pairs of headphones. And he says, you need to listen to what your sound will sound on like DJ headphones, on iPods, for the person who's just kind of walking around in the street, listen to your music, and how, it will, the sound will change. And something else he said is that, you play it in your studio and it might sound great, but then in a club, it might sound completely different. And I guess that's what you're saying there, where you then go, okay, I need to tweak this so that it works better maybe in a club environment, or,
The sound system of a club is one of the references, not just the only one. Of course, you have the main reference, that is your studio, your speakers, or your headphones, whatever you use. For example, in my case, I use my speakers. I have DJ headphones too, but I have 2 Bluetooth headphones too that are very important to me to adjust the track in a source of sound that I use a lot, and I know all my favorite tracks sound them in them. And it's the main source of sound for the most of the people, because people doesn't have professional speakers in their houses. It doesn't make sense. Car too, the sound system of the car is pretty important too. And of course, yeah, the last point is the sound system of a club.
Do you still go clubbing much as a kind of a consumer rather than, a performer? Is that something that you enjoy doing?
Well, as I said, my friends are not very into that kind of music, and it's something that I'm discovering being a DJ. I don't have too much background of rave. The majority of the things, and most of the things that I'm discovering is as the guy that plays music in the setup. So I don't go to too many nights to the clubs, but I think something that is interesting, and I like to analyze the nights, just not the DJ, but the reactions, the crowd to the production of the promoter too, how they organize the club, how they organize because it's something interesting for me, because it's an experience. It's just not music. You have to be into that experience. All of the characters are very important. The waiters, the sound system, the promoter, all of them. But no, I'm not very into the nights. I spend the 90% of my time here, and then I go to play my tracks that are done here.
Yeah. In regards to DJing, is that something that you actively seek out, DJ gigs, or are you just happy to kind of wait until promoter comes to you and says, hey, would you like to play here?
Well, luckily, we are a team. I have my booking manager that is, as I said, my one of my best friends. We meet each other 10 years ago or more than 10 years ago. So it's our job to find gigs, to find chances to express my music and to create something with the crowd. So yeah, it's our job. It's especially his job. He's a booking manager and he's always in contact with people of the night of every part of the world to spread my music.
I think it's important to point out at this moment that you also do have a kind of normal day job as well, don't you? You work, is it in a laboratory?
Yeah, I'm working full time too in a laboratory in a industry and ceramic company, because tiles, ceramic is very important. Is the main industry in that part of the country, and I think more than half of the population of here works in that kind of industry. My father too, for example, and some of people of my family. So yeah, I work in another full time work, and obviously is in the first time is something that you can think that spend or even waste a lot of time of your day in something that is not in common with music. And with that time, I will do something more with my music, with my project, but it provides me a lot of economic stability for me. And it's very important, even it's the main factor of the project, because at that moment, I can do whatever I want with my art, with my project, with not the pressure to have something that works, especially in the money speaking. So I can do whatever I want. For example, if I want to do a gift to the people and to spend a lot of hours recording how I do a track, I can do it. If I want to spend money to do a short film, I can do it. Maybe it's not the way that it works very well in the marketing world or in the popularity world, but it's something that my full-time job provides me. And I think it's the point that I have to take advantage of that. And well, maybe in the future, maybe in 1 month, we speak again and I'm not working and I'm full-time with the music. But in that point of my life, at least today, I think it's important to me to have that stability of money, of economic, to manage my life and to do whatever I want to evolve my project in a very artistic way.
Of course. And I mean, that was part of the point of me starting this podcast, to talk to people like yourself and my two guests before, Reg and Faide, who you're all in the same position. You're all producing fantastic music that's being played out by, some of the most kind of respected DJs, certainly within the scene. But, you're all kind of still got a kind of regular day job as well. And yeah, you're kind of balancing that day job with your, production time as well. Do you have a particular routine, or are you very disciplined in, time of getting into the studio, or are you kind of a bit more kind of chaotic?
Of course, I have a routine. When I'm not working in my full-time job, I'm in the studio. That's the routine. It's simple. And of course, I try to spend that time in the studio with quality in my tracks. But if I don't have enough inspiration, I spend the time, for example, to improve my medias, to improve my communication, or for example, to create content, or just or for example, to read books about mix and no more, or to take lessons. I don't know, but something that will provide something new to the project. For example, I right now enjoying a lot to watch designs from other designers, visual designers. But for me, it's a great inspiration for my project, because I can use the inspirations to create something with my project too. I don't know, but I like to spend all of my time here and waiting to create something in relation with the music and the environment that is with my music too.
Yeah. Now, we've got slightly sidetracked here, because originally we were talking about Infinito, but like all best conversations, we've gone off on a little kind of journey. But let's go back to Infinito, and we'll just listen to a little bit of that track now. So talking about Infinito, you recently made kind of a tutorial, didn't you, about how you made that track, and you sent that out to followers who could watch that kind of making of on YouTube. Kind of how did that come about?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a tutorial, but it's just a video of me doing the track or explaining or showing the track that the project is no more. But, well, I think it's something that is not bad, because I think not too much producer shows his tracks, unless in detail, not 1 minute reel in Instagram, something in detail that explains to the people. And I think it's just a way to connect your music with the other people that love that kind of music as you. I don't know. It's just to connect the people. Just not to connect producer with the fans, or to connect producer with the followers. Just a connection of people that loves the tracks, that kind of music. And I think it's grateful for the people too to see that kind. It's something that I would love to see from others. And I had a chance to see it in the past. For example, I have seen a lot of great masterclasses from great producers showing his tracks. In the end of the day, it's something that maybe is not so useful because, okay, it's the way to do your tracks, but it's not my way. I think it's a good moment just to see its curiosity.
And you talk about connecting with people who kind of follow you or into your music. Is that something that you enjoy? Because obviously these days, I guess a big part of being an artist, a producer, a DJ, is also the whole social media side, making yourself kind of known on social media. Is that something you enjoy? Because I think a lot of DJs and producers, I get the sense that quite a lot of people really enjoy it, they embrace it, and then quite a lot of people don't, and they kind of see it as a bit of a chore. Where do you fall into that?
Well, for me, medias and all of the tools that we have in nowadays with all of the technologies, for me, it's amazing, and there are very important tools to express my project in other ways, just not with the music, because I have a lot of necessity to express me, just not with music, but with pictures too, for example, with photography, with the way I communicate with the people. So yeah, for me, it's just a tool to complete the project, to complete my visual or my point of view in the artistic world. I know people that hate the social media, and of course I'm aware that has a bad side, because it puts you a lot of pressure with the results, for example, or other people use the medias to tell a story that doesn't exist, and just to create something that is not true. But I don't care about that. Yeah, for me, it's a main tool. I don't know if it works or not, but for me, it's a main tool to express me. I'm very shy. I don't like, for example, to take selfies or to create something very daily content. But for my project and how I realize that is very useful for me to create something connected with the picture, with the image, and with my sound.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great networking tool, isn't it, for producers like yourself. I feel that it's, there's a kind of very supportive community. I guess that's how you initially met, someone like Reg. That's how we initially got talking before Reg spoke to you about the podcast, just because as a fan of your music, we got chatting. And I do get the sense that certainly the kind of the music scene that we're part of, is it feels like a very small community, really. And it does feel like a very supportive community. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree totally. And I think social media has a great role to play in that topic. I don't know, maybe 30, 20 years ago, it was impossible, unless to me, to produce something with a man from Munich. It was impossible. It was impossible because it's impossible to take planes to do something together, unless for me to stay for weeks to get. But it's something available right now with the social media, and it's a way to connect people. And it doesn't matter the character in the scene. If you are a follower, you are a DJ, you are a producer, you are all of them. It's just, as you say, a small neighborhood with the same taste, with like-minded.
Yeah. What's coming up for you? Can you talk about kind of future projects? What's in store for Adrian Roman?
Well, this year is a little bit strange because we are getting into April and I have no release yet. But well, it's something natural. It's something maybe you have to take more time, or maybe you take time into a project that has a lot of tracks, and maybe the continuous releases are not so easy. But I will make debut in very important labels to me this year. For example, I will do 2 remixes for a tour, and I don't know when will be the release, but maybe it will be the first release in this year to me. But I will do some of debuts in great releases, in great labels for me, and I'm very proud, and I'm very looking forward to release them and to see what is the reaction, and to enjoy that moment.
You've had releases on some very respected labels within the scene, MoBlack, Isolate. Isolate, I think, was that your first release, Isolate?
My first important release for me was Isolate.
Now, I read something interesting about you, which I want to kind of talk about a little bit more in depth. I read something about when you made the Disturbing the Perception EP, you kind of saw it or envisaged it being released on Microcastle, fantastic label. And you said that if it hadn't been released on Microcastle, then maybe you would never have released it on any other label. Do you remember saying that in an interview? What was it about Microcastle, that label in particular, that you really wanted that EP to be released on?
Yeah, I didn't produce any EP thinking about a very concrete label. I just want to flow, and then the other stage is to see what I have, where could fit the tracks. So that's the other stage. But I don't want to reverse the stages. I don't want to do something to choose in one label, because it's something that not usually works. But yeah, for example, in that case, in the Microcastle EP, I had 4 tracks that for me were what I was very proud of the sound. And Microcastle was a label that I look up for years, and it's very important to me. Well, it changed. The opportunity could suddenly, and maybe that track will be in my ESB too, because I wanted them just in a very special label. And I think Microcastle was the perfect one. And maybe if Microcastle said no, maybe it wasn't unreleased.
Interesting. Fair enough. So we're coming to the end of the podcast now. How can people follow Adrian Roman if they're not already following you? Can you tell us about your kind of social media handles, etc.?
Well, I have the usual media: Spotify, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, your Instagram is, hopefully I got this right, Adrian Roman Music.
Yeah, and the Facebook too, Adrian Roman Music, and Adrian Roman Music is the name. Is the common name for my medias.
And you've also got a SoundCloud page, haven't you?
SoundCloud, that is Adrian Roman Music too. And then Spotify, that is getting importance right now. Spotify thing is, I don't know if it's very fair for artists, but it's getting important. That is something, is a fact. So if someone is interested of my music, can follow what I do, to decide if they want to follow or they want to pass.
Sure. And I also did my own little kind of homage to Adrian Roman, didn't I? I did a little mix of some of my favourite tracks of yours, which you were very happy with. So thank you. It means a lot. And you'll be able to find that mix along with this podcast on my SoundCloud page as well. Adrian, it's been absolutely lovely speaking to you. I really appreciate you taking out the time. I look forward to what comes next in your journey. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll speak to each other soon.
Yeah, I just wanted to say you thank you so much. I'm very grateful to you for having me in that pioneer format, in that small scene, in a small panorama of music. So congratulations for your concept, for your format. You are doing great things, and I'm sure that it will get bigger and bigger. It's very pleasant to be one of the first guests.
No problem. Much appreciated. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the kind words. Okay, we will speak to each other soon.
Electric Communion, conversations in Clubland. Thanks again to Adrian for all the time and commitment he put into doing this podcast. And if you made it this far, thank you to you too for persevering. As I said at the beginning of the show, the audio quality on this one wasn't as I would have hoped, but hopefully you still found the conversation enjoyable. Future updates and what's coming with the Electric Communion podcast, please follow me if you're not already doing at electric_communion. As discussed at the end of the podcast, if you're unfamiliar with Adrian's music, you might want to check out a mix I did of some of my favourite tracks of his. You can find that at my SoundCloud page. Just follow the link in the bio on my Instagram page. And finally, you can check out a monthly radio show I do on Decadence UK on the last Monday of every month, 7 PM till 9 PM GMT. You can check that out on the Decadence UK website, or you can download the app to your phone. Electric Communion, conversations